Welcome. My name is Ricardo. I'm a librarian at the Sacramento Public Library, where books are just the beginning. So, thank you for joining us today for Interview Preparation Skills for Teens, presented in partnership with Sacramento Works. We are super excited to offer this program with you today and to have Jessica Medina from Sacramento Works here with us. After this presentation, and maybe during the presentation, there'll be time for question and answers. But please feel free to use the chat anytime to post your questions. We'll get to them as soon as possible. Finally, this program is being recorded and will be shared on our YouTube channel in case you'd like to refer to it later. We have last week's program already up, and we will send the link out to all the participants. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jessica Medina from Sacramento Works. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Ricardo, and thank you to the Sacramento Public Library for partnering with us to host this event for teens. I know that this presentation today is going to have a lot of great content that I'm sure will be of value to all of you who are online with us today and those of you who will be viewing this presentation as it's made available online. So we're going to go ahead and jump right into today's presentation. If you guys just give me 1 second, I am going to momentarily hover over to my screen and hit the share button. Perfect. All right, it looks like we're there and it looks like we're ready to go. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Today's topic is interview skills, and we are going to be discussing and learning about strategies for effective interviewing. So we have a few objectives today. We're going to be learning about and understanding the typical interview structure. We are going to learn about what a behavioral interview is and how to best prepare for one. We will also be reviewing interview preparation strategies. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with just taking a view at the typical behavioral interview structure. So typically, an interview tends to last at minimum 30 minutes. Sometimes it can be a little bit on the shorter side at 20 minutes. And sometimes depending on the position and all the responsibilities that a role may entail, it could be longer, closer to an hour. But that 20 to 30 minute mark is the typical timeline for an interview. Here we have it broken down into different components. Typically, the introduction or the greeting phase of an interview lasts 2 minutes. And then it is followed by the employer's questions, which tend to last from 15 to 20 minutes. And typically, an applicant's response are anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, with the closing being 3 minutes. So that closing allows for further questions from an employer. But most usually it is reserved for the applicant to actually direct questions towards the employer and the interviewers. So let's go ahead and continue. We're going to go ahead and start talking about an introduction. The first impression at an interview counts a lot. Keep in mind that in order to land an interview, you as an applicant have already gone through the process of drafting your resume, editing your resume, customizing your resume, researching the role, and so forth. So because of all that effort that you've put into those actions, you've now landed an interview, and you have the opportunity to go in person, or if it's during COVID, during the current phase that we find us in, it's most likely virtual. And you have the opportunity to really learn about the role and to present yourself as a viable, qualified candidate for a role. So keep in mind that first impressions mean a lot. They really do count. Appearance is important. If you happen to have a virtual interview, you have to be mindful of your appearance and also the appearance of your background. If you're able to generate a virtual background, such as the one that I'm utilizing today, that is a very appropriate option. If you're not, and you actually have your background visible, you want to make sure that you're having your virtual interview in a space that is clutter-free. If you can have it be like a solid background where you can't see any personal belongings, such as a bed or perhaps a closet that's not necessarily cleaned up. That is, what you want to try to aim for, something that is professional, um, as both yourself as the applicant and also your background. You want to go ahead and be mindful of that. Um, whether you're in person or you're doing an interview virtually, you want to go ahead and maintain proper eye contact. So if you're doing it virtually, you want to make sure that your camera and your device is centered pretty level to your body, so that when you're looking at your webcam, your eye level is not down below here. It's not way up here. You want to try to make sure that you're at a stance where your body is centered in the middle of the screen. And so that way you're able to maintain eye contact with the webcam so that it looks as natural as possible. You know, it translates as natural as possible. Um, there, you want to go ahead and be mindful to shake people's hands. This is something that applies in non-COVID times. Obviously, right now in COVID, this is not a practice that we do per the precautions and safety guidelines. But when we do transition and we're out of COVID in the next year, this is something to be mindful of. And you can also be mindful of practices that companies kind of set forth in their invitation emails about how they feel about that going forward. You want to go ahead and make sure that you introduce yourself and that you pronounce your name pretty clearly. Sometimes when if you are a young person, if this is your first interview or one of the first interviews that you've ever attended, sometimes when we're nervous, we have the tendency to speak fast. And so that can also translate to the way that we pronounce our names. And if we happen to have unique names or cultural names, we want to go ahead and make sure that we are pronouncing our names fully, that we're enunciating our full names, and that we're saying them slowly. So that way, everybody can hear how we pronounce our name, and so that they can mimic that and pronounce names correctly. It's very important for employers to do that, and they want to. So sometimes the slower you can say your name, the better it is. You want to make sure that in your introduction, in addition to stating your name, you also offer a statement of thanks. Something along the lines of, thank you for having me. I'm very happy to be here to learn. I'm eager to learn about this position in greater depth. Something short and brief to give thanks to the interviewers for allowing you this time to come into their space, either physically or virtually, to learn about this position that you have interest in. All right. So, what happens during the interview? Well, the employer asks questions. What will these questions pertain to? Well, they will be questions that will pertain and ask you to address items that are found on your resume, and they will also be questions geared towards your behavior and your skills. However, one thing that should not be happening at an interview, and it won't, and if it does happen, know that you possibly can be in an interview where you're being asked what we call illegal interview questions, and that would be something for you to follow up with. But the questions will not be personal. They will not be asking you what your favorite color is, what your favorite show is, or anything of that sort. So it's really important that you note that the questions will not be personal. Thus, you should be mindful of disclosing personal details in the interview. And we'll go over that a little bit later in the presentation because we do have a few slides pertaining to that. All right, moving on to the next slide, behavior-based interviewing. So behavior-based interviewing is an interview structure format in which employers ask about previous behavior because they want to be aware of previous behavior as an indicator of future behavior. Typically, recruiters and interviewers ask for examples that demonstrate your level of skill with a particular behavior that is important to the company or an agency. Utilizing the STAR method can help you outline answers to detail your previous behavior and actions. And we're actually going to go ahead and be learning about the STAR method because it is a method that is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. It has a format that allows you to tell a story in a concise, shortened format. All right, and let's get right into it. Let's jump right into it. All right, so here we have a visual of the STAR approach method. So the STAR interview technique offers a straightforward format you can use to answer behavioral interview questions. There are prompts that ask you to provide real life examples of how you handled a certain situation at work in the past or in any type of environment where you were part of a team. These questions are typically easy to recognize, and there you can use this strategy or technique to make sure that you have different anecdotes to share at an interview. So if we look here, we can see that STAR stands for situation, the T in STAR stands for task, the A in STAR stands for actions, and the R stands for results. So, in order to tell an effective story or an effective anecdote to serve as an example to what you're asserting are your skills and your abilities and your past experiences in an interview, you want to go ahead and do these few items. So, the first thing is you want to go ahead and prepare. You want to make sure that you listen to the question and that you heard the question completely. If you're not clear on what the question is and you're in an interview, don't worry about asking the interviewer to repeat their question. It is completely okay to ask an interviewer to repeat a question. And then you want to go ahead and, in the moment, go ahead and think of an event that relates to their question and then utilize the STAR method. So, when providing details about the situation, you need to provide context and background about a situation. So, if you were providing a background or an answer to detail how you have previously provided great customer service, you can talk about a time when perhaps you were volunteering at the snack bar at your high school and somebody complained about their nacho cheese being cold. And so you can detail that the situation that you were a volunteer, you were working the snack bar, and you had a complaint. Okay. So then you move on to the task, and then that's where you describe the problem or the challenges. So then the challenge in this situation, the task would be to rectify the complaint. So the complaint was that the nacho cheese was cold, and so what did you do? What was the action that you specifically took to try to rectify the challenge or the problem that was presented? So you could say something along the lines of, I definitely understand the importance of providing great customer service. And I've actually provided great customer service when I've worked at my school's a snack bar during football games. There was a time where we had a guest come and let us know that the nacho cheese that they had been served was cold and it wasn't necessarily appetizing. So what I did is I took their nachos and I gave them a new batch and made sure that this new batch had fresh cheese on it. And the guest thanked me and left happily to go return to their seat and enjoy the rest of the game. So that would be just an example to kind of demonstrate how you would use the STAR technique. So there, in that example, we had the situation, we had the task, the action, and the results. So you want to go ahead and you're going to want to, in preparation for an interview, you're going to want to think of some questions, some possible questions that you may get. And we're going to go over that shortly. And you want to go ahead and really think about what skill the question is trying to address. And you want to think about making sure that you follow the STAR format, so that making sure you give an S, a T, an A, and an R, and if your answer could be better. So we're going to go ahead and look at some examples of some questions to kind of see if it was an effective STAR response or if maybe it was lacking and it could have been better. So we are going to start with this one. Question: can you tell me about a time you had to persuade others to your viewpoint? That is a question. The behavior that they are trying to gauge in this particular question is they're trying to see kind of how persuasive you can be. And that might be because, persuasion sometimes it often relates to the ability to sell people something, whether that is a product, whether that is a service, or whether that is a program. So the answer here in this example that somebody gave was that was what we see here on the screen. I was part of a negotiating team for my department when we negotiated our last contract. Let me tell you that the bargaining on this was tough. No one wanted to give an inch. However, in the end, we got them to agree to most of our demands. So we have a situation. We can tell that it was a negotiations between, it seems like a union and employees. We have a task. Do we have a task? It's not quite clear. It's not quite clear that there's an action and a result. So let's go ahead and perhaps see what could have been a better star response. So let's go ahead and look at this and look at how it's broken down. Okay, so a better response here to detail the situation and the task, we have it at the top. I was a part of a negotiating team for my department. The supplier wanted a large increase of 8%. All right, now we have better understanding of this situation and the task. We're going to learn about the action. We're going to detail it a little bit better here. The action was I listened carefully to my supplier's needs. Okay, active listening, that's an action. I collected data to support my argument on why 8% was unreasonable. Okay, so collection of data, so kind of to support what they were asserting. And then we have I presented analytical data to support our position for a 4% increase versus an 8% increase. I also worked with management to change some requirements so it would be less costly for the supplier. As a result, what was the result? The final agreement was only a 5% increase, saving us $50,000. I learned the importance of really listening to the supplier, collecting and analyzing relevant data, and getting management support for my plan. So they detailed the result in great detail. They threw out a lot of numbers. They're quantifying here, so they really are trying to paint as clear a picture as possible to show their success and all the actions that they took. So this response paints a better picture, a more succinct picture, but still a short picture. Given that it's a short response, to detail their skill. So here we know that they can persuade somebody to do something. We know that they have the ability to actively listen to somebody. We know that they have the ability to collect and analyze data and to, like we said, persuade somebody because they got their manager support on that particular plan. So this response is a more effective one in terms of utilizing that STAR format. So I hope that's clear. Please go ahead and drop any questions in the chat right now if you have any, so we can address them while we're here. If not, that's okay. We can go ahead and save them. Let's go ahead and move on to the second one. I don't see any chats coming in, so we're going to go ahead and move on. Okay. Question number 2. Can you tell me about your ability to use analytical skills? Once again, a question where they're trying to gauge your behavior and the behaviors that you have taken in the past that will prove that you really do possess a skill and that you have proficiency or that you excel in a particular skill. And most likely, this is a skill that you listed on your resume. Okay. So we have here below A. I am good at Excel. A as the answer. I am good at Excel and have created several spreadsheets to improve processes. Okay, that's a good answer. But what is it missing? What is missing from this response? So it doesn't give us a specific situation. It doesn't tell us exactly when or where they were working when they created an Excel, if they were volunteering somewhere, if they were an employee. We don't have information about the situation or the task. They do state that they can do something, but they didn't necessarily give details about the action. So the action is missing, and we have no results. There's no results in terms of since their actions weren't clear, their results are also not clear. So likely, if this was the response that somebody gave as an answer to the question, that interviewer, as we can see here, they would most likely, highly likely, to ask follow-up questions. And you also have to keep in mind that in an interview, given that for the most part, those questions, the question and answer period is lasting between, 15 to 20 minutes, as we saw at the beginning of the presentation. Giving a sentence answer where you don't elaborate and provide greater detail is not a strong position to be in. You definitely want to go ahead and avoid giving one sentence answers. And you want to strive to use the star method in your responses so that you are definitely painting the broadest picture and the most clear picture of your skills. So, how do you prepare your stars? So, in order to start preparing your star responses, you need to understand what skills the company considers critical to success. So, oftentimes, where do you learn about those skills? Well, when you're applying to jobs, jobs always include an official job posting or an official job description, and those descriptions will contain the duties and the roles and the actions. That the person filling that job position or that role will be responsible for. So the first starting point is to go ahead and make sure that you read that job posting and that job description, and you highlight the skills um, that they're looking for, so that you can make sure that you prepare responses for an interview that communicate your possession of those skills. Um, you want to go ahead and also look at your resume. And for each of the skills that you have noted on your skills section, you want to go ahead and write a star to serve as evidence that you possess that skill. So here we have in this visual here some common areas covered in behavioral interviews. So oftentimes at an interview, they're going to be asking questions to gauge, your leadership skills, your teamwork skills, your analytical ability, your creativity, your innovation, your problem solving skills, and your ability to interact with diverse populations as they relate to customer and client relations. So what we are going to do here, we are going to go ahead and actually engage in an activity via the chat. I welcome full participation. This really is a good exercise for all of us to practice and get some practice drafting some of these. So if you all can see, take a look here. Um, we have different scenarios. So these are the question categories. So we are going to be detailing a time when we had to be a leader, a time when we had a difficult situation, a time when we had to be innovative, a time when we had to work with a difficult person, and a time when we had to convince somebody to change their mind. So let's go ahead and if I can just have people in the chat go ahead and agree to do one. So if you can just go ahead and go over to the chat and write which one you want to go ahead and work on. We're going to go ahead and take a 5-minute break. I'm going to put on some background music, and then you can take some time there at your home, wherever you are joining us from, to go ahead and draft a response. And so I'm going to also go through one with you guys, okay? So the first one, if you want to do a leader, if you want to do the leader example, just go ahead and type leader into the chat box. Okay. If you want to do difficult situation, just go ahead and type in difficult situation into the chat box. If you want to go ahead and address the had to be innovative, go ahead and put innovative into the chat box. If you want to go ahead and address the difficult person, go ahead and put difficult person into the chat box. And then we're going to go around. We're going to go around and have people share it in the chat. Okay, so be ready. Once again, we're going to take a 5-minute break. I am going to put on some music for us. Oh, sorry, I forgot it. One category. Change their mind. So persuasion. All right, I'm seeing those go into the chat box. Thank you. Difficult situation. All right, go ahead and put your, okay. All right. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and stop this share for the moment, and we will be back to it. All right, let's go ahead and take our 5 minutes to work on those. So remember, we are doing situation, task, action, and results. So what you should have in front of you at this moment is a piece of paper, and you should be writing down your an example. So imagine that I asked you the question. Imagine that I asked you, "Hi, thank you for coming to this interview. Can you tell me about a time when you had to deal with a difficult person?" What you should be drafting right now on your piece of paper should be the situation when you had to deal with a difficult person, the task, the action, and the result. And you can go ahead and talk about instances, maybe something that happened at school, maybe something that happened at a school club meeting that you went to, maybe something that happened between your family. There's different situations or that you can draw from. Does anybody have any questions on the activity? All right, guys, I'm gonna put the timer on. You guys won't hear me for a little bit, but you guys will see the timer on the screen, and once it hits 0, I will come off of mute. All righty, it looks like the timer ended, but I want to go ahead and just check in via the chat and see if if anybody was willing to share. I'm going to go ahead and share mine. And then if anybody is willing to share via the chat, feel free. If not, that's okay. But I do definitely want to go ahead and provide an example of this for you guys. Okay, so let me go ahead and share. Let me go ahead and share mine, and then we can have somebody share. Okay. All right, let's go back to the sharing of the screen. All right, everybody should be able to see the presentation. And so let's go ahead and get started with the share. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share with you guys an example that has to do with dealing with a difficult situation. Okay, so the question that somebody was asked in an interview was, what would you do when 2 team members refuse to complete their quota for work? And so an appropriate response that's short and concise and also follows the STAR technique would be the following. When there are team conflicts or issues, I always try my best to step up as a team member if needed. I think my communication skills make me an effective leader and moderator. For example, one time I did face a difficult situation in which I was working on a team project, and 2 of my team members got embroiled in an argument. And unfortunately, both refused to complete their assignments. They were both dissatisfied with their workloads. So what I did as a team leader in this position was that I arranged a team meeting where we reallocated all the assignments amongst the whole team, amongst all the members. And this made everybody more happier with their caseloads, and thus they were more productive. And our project was a success because we were able to meet deadlines, and everybody produced their top work, given that they felt the new reallocation was fair. So that's how I dealt with one difficult situation. So that was the example that detailed how one dealt with a difficult situation. So we know that the situation, the task was that they were part of a team, they were a team leader, and 2 of their coworkers or their teammates just refused to complete an assignment because they felt that they were given too big of a piece to do. So what did the team leader do? They had to make sure that the project was done and everybody was playing an equal role. That was their task. So they called a meeting and then reallocated roles or reallocated work. And as a result, the project got done, and everybody was more content with their workload. So that is an example that we have that can be used in an interview to demonstrate that one has leadership skills, that one has teamwork skills, and problem-solving skills. So I hope that example helped you guys better understand this exercise. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the chat. Okay. Looks like we have here. Okay, we do have somebody for that shared. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate your engagement in this course. All right, so let's go ahead and read this. All right, I'm going to read it to everybody. In English class, we had group projects. The teams were chosen randomly. Another teammate and I were working on our part. Okay, so that's information for situation and task. The third person did not do their part. Okay, so now we know that there's a problem there. I communicated to the teacher what was happening so that my teammate and I are not to blame and receive bad scores. However, this third partner did his work last minute, right before it was our turn to present. They happened to change some of the presentation we had worked on, and they could only present on their part. This completely blindsided us. Okay, so we know in detail the situation. All right, let's learn about the task. We remained professional during the presentation. I did communicate with him throughout the project. He did not respond. We made sure to communicate to the teacher what their actions were. Okay, so we have situation and we have task, right? So we have the situation that it seems like it was an uncooperative team member and they had the task. What was their task at hand? They remained professional. So in this exam, and what did they do? They communicated in a professional manner. They emailed their teacher. So we have, we have a good. This is good. That's three of them: situation, task, and action. It would be a little bit I think it would be a little bit better of a response to be able to put a clear result in there, and maybe kind of end the note on a positive saying like, oh, I learned that in the future, perhaps I should learn a manner to better motivate a teammate that's in this position. So something of that sort. But not bad. Not bad. That's great. That's a great response. Definitely this person understood the prompt here. So thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. Okay, everybody, let's move on. If there's nobody else, let me go ahead and check the chat one more time. All right. Teamwork. All right. We have another individual who's sharing. Thank you so much once again for engaging. All right. Teamwork. So this is to address teamwork. Okay. They say a situation that happened at school was during drama class. We had to present our skits we made in front of the whole class. But the problem was that most of my team members didn't show up to class that day, leaving me and two other members to practice our act. Although it wasn't easy, myself and the other two team members worked together and created a plan on how we could improvise when it was our turn to present our skits. And in the end, the whole skit was pretty good, and our teacher was impressed that um, we were able to improvise well without most of our team members. Okay, that's a great response. That's a great response. We know the situation. We know that the situation happened in a school environment during a drama class in which there were absent team members. So the task was that this person still needed to present. This person and their group still had to accomplish the task of presenting and performing their skit in front of the class. So what did they do? What were the actions that they took? Well, it looks like they improvised. So they had to think last minute and maybe they had some creative approaches to that. They improvised, that was the action. And as a result, they were able to, in fact, perform their skit. And the teacher actually said that it was good and that she was impressed by their performance. Great. We hit all those points, the S, the T, the A, and the R. That is a great response. And this response allows an interviewer to really see that in fact the person giving this response that they can adapt. They are adaptable because they were able to do that in the situation. We can see that this person also has the ability to be creative because they had to improvise and they also had to maybe convince their teammates to improvise. And so definitely a good response to hint at some of the skills and to serve as evidence that this person possesses skills that they may have listed on their resume. Good work. Good job. Thank you so much for sharing and for engaging in the chat. I really appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Okay, so we are going to talk about a me in 30 seconds, also known as an elevator speech. Oftentimes, I think 99% of the time when you attend an interview, that very first question most commonly asked at an interview is, tell me about yourself. How you answer this question greatly affects the first impression you give. It sets the tone for the entire interview. So, this is really important, especially for young people, young adults who perhaps have never been to an interview, perhaps don't have a lot of experience interviewing. This is where it's important for you guys not to get personal. I know that sometimes when you're a young person and you don't have a lot of experience and somebody says, tell me about yourself, you want to go ahead and say, oh, I'm 17. I attend Sacramento High School. My favorite color is purple. I have a dog named Joey, and I love hiking. That comes natural. That seems like a natural response, but we want to go ahead and refrain from that and make sure that we're talking about ourselves in a professional sense and talking about our professional persona. And I know that for young people, thinking of it in that way and framing it in that manner can be a challenge because you guys don't may not have a lot of experience, working experience or paid experience, and so you guys don't see yourselves as professionals yet. But you guys have to remember, you guys are budding professionals. If you're in the job search, if you're in job search and you're really looking to land your first role, or you already have a job and you're looking to land another role in another industry, you always have to have that mindset. I am a young professional. I am a budding professional, so that you are operating from that mindset. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at what a me in 30 seconds is. Okay, so a me in 30 seconds, or an elevator pitch, as maybe perhaps some of you guys have heard of it before, but it is a short text, something that you memorize, that you write down and that you memorize. Um, in order to be able to have a response to that question and to be able to respond to it in a professional manner. So here we have an example. At the beginning, you can go ahead and state something as simple as, hello, my name is Jessica Medina. Thank you so much for inviting me to this interview. I'm eager to learn about the brand associate position. Um, a little bit about myself. I have a lot of computer skills. I am very proficient on the computer. I have the ability to interact with diverse populations, and I have experience in the nonprofit sector. I've worked with young people before, I've worked with adults, and I've also volunteered at a crisis line. I consider myself a very dependable person, a hard worker, and in me, you're going to get an honest and dedicated employee. And I really am glad to be here today. So that is an example of a 30-second me. You are opening up with your name. You are listing some of your skills, because you want to go ahead and just state those. You can list hard skills, which are once again skills that you've learned through experience, either through the experience you've gotten in the classroom or some kind of training, or experience that you've gotten in real life, and also your soft skills, your skills that relate to how you interact with others, and your social skills. And then you also want to talk about the instances where you've gained experience being part of a team. Um, and so that can be in a variety of different settings: school settings, public settings, um, community settings, and so forth. Okay. So here is another example that we have. All right, I'm going to go ahead and read it for you guys. Hello, my name is Justin Case. Thank you for inviting me to interview for the brand associate position. I can clean, organize, and maintain a workspace. I work well with others and work at an efficient pace. In the past, I have volunteered to help organize and display clothing at the clothes closet at the Sacramento Family Food Bank. I have also volunteered in the food bank's produce for all department, where I process, sorted, and packaged food item donations. I graduated from Sacramento High School, and in the fall, I will be attending Sacramento City College with a declared major in business. I consider myself an organized, motivated, and focused individual with a growth oriented mindset. In me, you will get a hard worker and a dedicated employee. I'm very happy to be here with you all today. So, that is an example. All right. And so you guys, once again, as we shared in the As we shared in the chat, you guys will have access to this slideshow. You guys will get this emailed out to you guys. So you guys will definitely have these visuals to go ahead and reference as you guys are drafting your guys' own responses and your guys' own elevator pitches and your guys' own star responses, okay? So these are the most common interview questions to prepare for. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What achievement are you most proud of? Why do you why do you want to work for X company? No matter how many times you've gone through it, the thought of being interviewed can still make you nervous. But know that if you are going to go to an interview, the likelihood that you see these particular questions is very high. Either worded exactly like this or, a variation of this. But you always want to have a response prepared for what your strength is. And once again, when you are responding to these questions, you want to avoid your one sentence answers. And how do you do that? You do that precisely by implementing the STAR technique. And so keep in mind, I want to go ahead and touch on this one. What are your weaknesses? A lot of times I get the question from young people, youth and young adults. Jessica, what do I say for my weakness? Like, I don't want them to judge me too much about my weakness, or like, do I have to be honest? Like, can I tell a little fib? How do I answer that? And that is a great question. Um, so to answer what are your weaknesses, you definitely want to be honest. You don't ever want to be dishonest in an interview. However, you do want to disclose a weakness that isn't directly related to the role that you are applying for. So for example, if you were going to be applying for a position in which you were going to be a cashier, let's say you were applying for a cashier position at a restaurant. And at the boba restaurant, they utilize the regular POS, point of sale system, and then they also have the cube, which is something that runs off of iPhones or iPads, and it is a little bit different than the traditional point of sale system. And let's say, I know this is kind of unheard of. I don't know that this would be the case for a lot of young people. Uh, let's say that your computer skills are not that strong. You don't understand how to operate the Mac iOS. You don't understand how the cube works, and you're just not good with computers. If that's something that's directly related to that role, you don't want to disclose that. You don't want to disclose that as your weakness, because that's something that if you disclose it, they connect the dots. So, oh, that's directly related. So you want to go ahead and say something that's truthful, but not necessarily something that is likely to impact your performance in that role. Um, so one thing, so that's one thing for you to be mindful of. Why do you want to work for X company? Oftentimes that is a question that interviewers pay a lot of attention to, because they're asking that to see how much you actually know about the company. Responding, I just need a job. I just want money. I need money. I'm trying to save for cheer camp. I want to save for prom. That's not an appropriate excuse, because an appropriate response, because those responses are hinting that your motivation is to solely make money. And while that is true, we all have jobs, we all have careers because we need to make a living. You really need to be displaying to an employer that you understand their company, that you understand their mission, and that you understand their values, and that their mission and their values are things that align with your mission and your values. And so being able to kind of paraphrase the company's mission statement in your response to this question um, is a great thing to be able to do. So if you can actually go online and try to find the tagline or the catchphrase or the mission statement for a company, and really play off of the wording there in your response, and make it genuine, I think that that's a really good approach to take when addressing um, when addressing this question. So for example, if you were going to apply at McDonald's, McDonald's has a catchphrase, right? Ba-dum, 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 I'm loving it, correct? So you want to go ahead and say something to the something to the effect of like, I want to work at McDonald's because I really enjoy the food. I love that you guys do Happy Meals with the latest toys for children. Based on the latest movies. I think that that's really a really cool experience that you guys offer children that visit the restaurant. And I want to work here because I think I have great customer service and I'm very friendly. And I think I definitely can use those skills to make sure that our guests have a positive experience when they come and visit us, and to make sure that they do love visiting us. So that is why I want to work here. So see how in that response we're playing off of the tagline or the mission statement that that particular company has. And we talked about something that we liked about the company. We said that we like that they have Happy Meals, and we like that that's an experience that children that visit the restaurant get to have. Because I think for the most of us, for a lot of us, when we were children, we really enjoyed that, and now we look back as youth, as young adults, we look back on that with nostalgia. So just an example. But definitely, if you're preparing for an interview, make sure that you have responses to these four. All right. So this is kind of a slide detailing what I've already explained. And that if you want to talk about your strengths, you want to relate them to the position, you want to give an example of when you have demonstrated those strengths. You can also detail briefly how you developed that strength and what situation you were in when you developed that strength. What are your weaknesses? Once again, admit that you have one. If you can also identify that you're going to be working to improve your weakness, or that you've learned something from this weakness, and so forth. All right. So if you happen to be in an interview and you feel that you need more time to answer a question, maybe you didn't hear the question correctly, or maybe you didn't quite comprehend the question. That's okay. It's definitely okay. If you're not sure what you want to respond, you can definitely use any of these phrases to kind of buy you a little bit of time. Okay, so we're going to go over them. One of those phrases is, good question. Let me think about that for a minute. And then you can proceed to take 20, 30 seconds to think about that. Um, if you need clarification, you can go ahead and repeat the answer back to them. So you can say something along the lines of, so you're asking if I've been in a situation where I've had to confront a customer about that. So you're asking if I've been in a situation when I had to issue a refund, or so forth. So that is completely okay to repeat the question back to them as a form of asking them to clarify or clarifying that question. You can also just very straightforwardly ask them if they can repeat the question, and they will. You can also admit that a question is a little challenging because nobody's ever asked you that. Um, and then you can go ahead and proceed to say your response. And sometimes silence is okay. Not long periods of silence, nothing like 2, 3 minutes, but taking about 30 seconds and just nodding and showing that that you're thinking is okay as well. So how do you prepare for the interview? What are the steps? So if we were going to do a to-do list with check marks to check off boxes, this is the sequence that you should consider. So the first one should be, once again, researching the company. Make sure that you go on their official website. Make sure that you hit their About Us section, that you see kind of like what year they started, what are some of their values. If you can actually find their mission statement, that's great. You want to review your resume. Make sure that you review your resume, and that you know exactly what you put on this resume. Because remember, you're editing your resume. It's a living document. You want to make sure that you look at the specific one that you sent them, because it could quite possibly be very different than another one that you sent another company. So make sure you review your resume. Make sure that you prepare some star responses, and that you prepare a question or two for the interviewer. So at the end of an interview, the person interviewer you typically asks, "Do you have any questions for me?" And most often not, we say, "No, I don't." But if you can actually ask one question or two, it really makes you stand out from other applicants, because more often than not, people don't ask questions. So if you actually ask questions, it shows that you really are interested and you want to learn more. You just went through an interview, but you still have more questions. Like you're really interested. And so definitely, I would always advise to at least ask one question or two minimum, because that's going to help you stand out. You can ask questions like, don't don't ask about pay. You'll learn that later if you receive an offer, but you want to go ahead and ask like, what's the typical day look like here at McDonald's, or what's the typical day like here at Rite Aid? Or if you were to ask your team what their favorite part about working here is, what do you think they would say? Or what's your favorite part about working here? And so forth. And so you can ask questions like that to get more insight into the culture of a company, and so forth. And doing that, like I said, really can set you apart. And you want to prepare yourself. So once again, we're talking about that first appearance, making sure that you're dressed professionally, that you're groomed, that your background, if it's virtual, is appropriate, and so forth. Um, Interviewings are ruling enough, but you can lighten the mood by maintaining a warm, friendly tone and listening to the interviewer intently. Um, Here we have a few more slides talking about exactly how you research the company. So once again, you want to always visit their official site. That's going to allow you to know the company, learn more about the industry that they're in, and about the job duties of that particular role that you are applying for. Okay. So since we're almost here to the end of this, we are going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward through these. Keep in mind you are going to have these, and so you can reference them. At the end of the interview, you always want to make sure that you do thank them again for their time. You also can clarify what to expect if they have not told you what the next steps are. Typically, at the end of an interview, the person interviewing a potential employee will disclose what the next steps are. They may say, "Oh, we hope to make our decision by Friday. By next Monday, we'll let you know." Either way, if we're extending an offer or if we've decided to go with another candidate, please, check your emails. Oftentimes they let you know, but if for some reason they didn't, perhaps it slipped their mind, it's completely okay to ask at the end of an interview what the next steps are. And then you can end that interview with, expressing that you look forward to hearing from them and that you really enjoyed um, being at the interview and learning more about the position and learning more about their company. Okay. So to summarize, when preparing for an interview, you need to prepare your stars. You need to prepare questions for the interview. So remember that's at the end, and you need to practice your delivery. You can do that either with practicing with your friend on the phone, practicing with somebody on Zoom, or just practicing by yourself in front of the mirror, making sure that you have that visual or you have somebody to offer constructive criticism as to your delivery. Okay. All right, so we got to the end of the presentation. Once again, my name is Jessica Medina, and I am with Sacramento Works. I am a workforce development planner. If you have any questions about this presentation, you can go ahead and reach out to me at my office line. And feel free to also consult this presentation that is made available. I want to go ahead and take a moment to go ahead and look at the chat and see if there are any questions that have come in. If you have any questions about the topics covered in this presentation, feel free to put it in the the chat box now. All right, let me go ahead and open that up. All right, we do have a question. Okay. Okay, so the question is, what if I don't have any response for a certain question? I am only 18, so I haven't worked anywhere yet. That is a great question. That's a great question. Okay, so if this happens to be you, you're 15 and you haven't officially worked anywhere yet. You can go ahead and use an example from something that you've been involved in. So anytime that you've been in a setting where you're part of a team and you had to contribute to a common goal. So that can be whether you're in chess club, in Spanish club, if you run track and field, anytime where you're part of a group setting and you are a team member, um, working towards an established goal, you can use that as an experience. Um, so um, so keep that in mind. So, for example, if you were to be asked about a difficult time where you had to, maybe deal with a difficult person. Um, Maybe you can talk about a time that you had a soccer tournament through school, and you actually had somebody when you were playing defense that kept on actually pushing you, and the ref wasn't seeing it. So you can talk about how you maintained your cool and you maintained your professionalism. And when it was halftime, you actually let your coach know, hey, that this player on our opponent's team is not being sportsmanlike. Can you please communicate that to the ref to keep a close eye because they're being unsportsmanlike. So I communicated that to the coach. The coach did let the referee know, and then the referee actually did catch one of those times when they were being unsportsmanlike, and they actually got a red flag. So I'm really proud of myself for dealing with that difficult situation and for maintaining my cool and still displaying sportsmanlike behavior. So that might be an example. All right. So we have another question. Um, What if an interviewer says something that is offensive? Ooh, that's a great one, and uh, that's that's unfortunate if that were to happen to you. But keep in mind that every company has an HR department. So if you feel that you ever go to an interview and you feel that the person interviewing you maybe wasn't proper and wasn't professional, and you did take offense to something that they did, you want to go ahead and first start by asking them to clarify their question, okay? Because sometimes when we get offended or when we take offense to something, it sometimes is due to miscommunication or misunderstanding. So asking them to clarify their question would be the first starting point. However, if they do clarify and you still feel like, oh, I did understand that and that wasn't professional or that was offensive, it is appropriate at that time to go ahead and make sure that you collect contact information for this individual that is interviewing you. And if you want to go ahead and reach out to the HR department, or try to locate the corporate contact for that business, you can go ahead and do that and send a professionally worded thorough email about what that experience was, so that their HR department could be aware of that. And so that would be something. If you are a minor and you ever encounter that, the advice that I would give is definitely inform your parents and have your parents or a trusted adult with experience sending professional communications or professional emails um, help you, deal with that. But definitely HR or informing a corporate about that situation would be the best thing that you can do. Great question. That is something that if you guys ever find yourselves as young people in a situation like that where you feel uncomfortable about being in an interview, perhaps you think that you were asked illegal interview questions, you can definitely feel free to go ahead and reach out to me or reach out to anybody at Sacramento Works, any one of our centers. We will be able to provide you more guidance on how to respond to that or communicate that. I'm going to leave my email once again in the chat box. My email is jessica.medina@seta.net. So that is a great question. I hope you guys don't have to deal with that, but I'm not going to say that it doesn't happen, because life is life and a lot of things do happen. Thank you for bringing up that very sensitive and question. All right. Are there any more questions? Go ahead and put them in the chat. If not, we can go ahead and close out today's session. All right. We have a question. Where can I type my resume on? Docs, Word docs, or somewhere else? Great question. So if you are drafting your resume, you always want to make sure that you do it in a Word format. So whether you're using the Microsoft Word application on your computer, or you're using Google Docs on your computer as well, you always want to go ahead and have it in a format that is editable, so that because you're going to be editing it a lot. So definitely, I honestly tell young people and adults to just go ahead and put it in a Google Doc in their Google Drive that's associated with their email. That way they can easily edit it, and then you can always have the option of downloading it in different formats. From Google Docs, you can download it as a Microsoft Word document, you can download it as a PDF, you can download it as a picture. So definitely my advice is to do it in Google Docs.
There is one more question just popped
Okay,
up.
let me
Is it
see.
okay to display humor during the interview?
That is a great question. So you definitely want to go ahead and use a warm and welcoming tone, kind of like the one that I've been using in this presentation. You want to. I'm going to advise to stay away from saying jokes, particularly like jokes that like it's a joke. Because you want to really go ahead and it's a serious decision that they have to make. Keep in mind that the decision to hire somebody is very important. It definitely costs the company a lot of time and effort and energy to make their job postings, to schedule the interviews, to allow for staff time to for staff to not be working but to be interviewing people. So they're putting a lot of time and energy and resources into finding the most qualified and appropriate candidate. So while it's okay to display your personality and to answer questions as honestly as you can, and display some of your personality, you want to stay away from intentionally saying jokes, because sometimes they can be interpreted different. They most often are interpreted differently, by different people from with different experiences, and from different backgrounds. So I would advise to kind of caution staying away from jokes. But hey, if you're naturally a funny person and the way that you describe stuff, sometimes you know can be interpreted as being funny, that's how it's going to be. But don't purposely make any jokes. That's a great question. It's always advised to be friendly, but never never joking. Great question. All right, I don't see any more popping up, so I am going to go ahead and send it back to Ricardo from the Sacramento Library to go ahead and close this out.
Thank you, Sacramento Works. Also, in that email, we're going to send out some information on some really, really great programs for teens and some good opportunities that we have in the works. So keep an eye out for that. We also invite you to explore additional resources for job and career building skills in our library collection. For more information about our teen services, library services, and other upcoming programs, visit www.saclibrary.org. And for the Sacramento Public Library, thank you so much and be well.